where you own an NFT and you can go to an event or you can go to a concert or whatever else. So you've both got the digital world side of things, but you've also how that interacts with our physical reality.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of NewForum. NewForum brings together leaders, creators, new starters and new perspectives on crypto, the metaverse, NFTs, social 3 and DAOs.
The new coin protocol provides the foundation for the next generation of social networks, shifting from the attention economy to the decentralized creative economy. Take a moment to like and subscribe to our channel. On today's episode, we have Opaque. He focuses on NFTs within the VC group. He works within mental health, performing arts theater, short movies, art and crypto, female empowerment, and NFTs. Hey, Opaque, thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Thank you for having me.
So, Opaque, the first question, to start things off, I want to ask you about yourself and also how did you find your way into the crypto world?
Predominantly over the last few years, I trained as an actor in England and then kind of entered the acting industry. And then I knew of crypto since the early 2010s, but never really bought any. And then it was kind of last year. I think probably a lot of people had the same thing of because there was less things going on physically we couldn't go outside as much, we couldn't do as many things with friends, so we spent a lot more time online. So I think I kind of stumbled into it, the philosophy more of cryptocurrencies and decentralization, discovered NFTs early last year. It's been less than a year really, which I think just shows you how fast this space moves. So before that, I had bought Bitcoin at the peak of top in 2017, but I didn't have any convictions, so kind of sold it 6 months later for a substantial loss. And then, last year kind of got in again through Bitcoin, then looking at NFTs, looking at DeFi, and this time it really stuck because I really understood the use cases of both DeFi and NFTs, especially coming from an arts background, and how NFTs, amongst other things, are really good at building communities, having artists speak directly to their audiences and create a new way of creating, which I think is really exciting. And I don't necessarily think we're not at the final stage of it yet, and I think that's really exciting. So that's a short TLDR.
Yeah, very, very interesting. You come from an arts background, but then you ventured into a whole new space. I think a lot of us dealt in the pandemic, with being at home and wanting to learn new things, wanting to also do something about what it was happening. I think Web3 really was like an opportunity in these like dark times. So yeah, it's interesting how more and more artists are getting into the space. Really cool.
Yeah, I guess I'll just add that, you mentioned that, everything happened so quickly. And I think I think during the COVID lockdown, during that time, I would say that's when things sort of started escalating or moving pretty fast within this space, because at the time we were all seeking sort of, how do you say, like internet was kind of like all we had. If you were stuck at home, what would you do? You would go on your phone, right? And so I think it sort of gave the chance for all of these possibilities to happen so quickly, and we're still like excited to see where it goes.
I think as well, because it's for me personally, over the last 12 months, I found it quite a positive space as well. I think because there's so much innovation there, a lot of the spaces that I'm in or have been in terms of arts, and also activism, can be quite negative and I think the thing that I really enjoy about crypto is the fact that it doesn't take the status quo as it is and says we want to change things, but does it in quite a proactive, positive way rather than just railing against the current systems as they are. It's building something new in the hopes that will subsume it or take it over or guide our current systems without just going, I hate it, I don't like it. And I think sometimes that, especially something like Twitter, I used to find that quite difficult on Twitter, of going on every day and there's just lots of negativity, justified negativity. But I think that can become quite a drain on a while. So I think for me, definitely it was a escape into some positivity as well. So I assume it provided a similar space for some other people too.
Yeah, quite interesting that you also mentioned that you bought Bitcoin and you sold Bitcoin, and it's kind of like sometimes you have like this FOMO of like, oh, I should have like maybe kept it there. Or even with NFTs, you have this FOMO sometimes of like, should I buy this, should I not buy this? And yeah, it's amazing that we now have this, like with DeFi and like with Web3, we get more excited about like financial things and how we can really take ownership. And that wasn't really like there before, because you usually have with the banks and everything, you have this hierarchy, or even with industries, with the music industry, with the art world. And yeah, Web3 kind of just takes that away, or you can enter at your own pace and kind of like create a new kind of world. So I think that's really exciting for me, at least. Yeah.
I think one of the things I really love about crypto and about NFTs as well is that if you want to, you can only invest in projects that really align with your morals, be that ethical, aesthetic, whatever. I think that's really wonderful, because especially as an artist, often you have to work with people that don't respect you, or that you don't respect, or that don't respect other artists, because you need to make the money to pay your rent. And I think the thing that Web3, the NFTs do, or have the potential to do, and are doing for some people, obviously not everyone yet, but are doing for some people, is giving them the opportunity to make what they want to make, or buy what they want, or support what they want. I think that's a really powerful, empowering thing.
Yeah, I totally agree, because back in the days, you see all these there was a form of digital art, let's say, but you could easily just copy and use whatever you find online, and there's somebody actually behind it, there's somebody who created it, but that person doesn't necessarily benefit. And I think this is all part of the reasons why most artists, like in general, are not respected, but I think that, like you said, NFT sort of like bridges this gap, and it allows creators to gain more value, and we hope that eventually will be like scalable, and to a point where more people can have access to it. And so I realized that we've been using the word crypto and Web3 sort of interchangeably, and I'm wondering, like, how would you sort of define what Web3 is and what crypto is, especially to our newer, I'd say, beginners who might be listening to this, because it can get a bit confusing,
Just before we move on to that, you were saying about like artists that you could copy and paste things in,
right.
in the old world.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting. I don't know if you caught any of the Super Bowl the other day, but there's a picture that keeps coming up every Super Bowl of American swingers. So there's like three groups of people having sex, and then there's a guy off in the background watching the game, and there's another guy watching the game, and there's a dog looking really depressed. And somebody posted this picture the other day. And then Naomi Harris, the woman who took the photograph, commented underneath saying it would be really wonderful if you credited me for this. And the fact that like this photo comes up every Super Bowl, but she's never credited. And then she posted like a couple of hours later, maybe I should finally turn this into an NFT. And it completely shows the use case of like, as soon as you've used that photo, because I don't know when she took it. I think the book came out in 2010. So obviously NFTs went around 12 years ago, but it's interesting that perfect use case for something like that, where you've made something that has a brand or has provenance, and then you can make an NFT on it, somebody wants to buy it or whatever else. So sorry, that was a bit of a tangent, but no, I found that really interesting when and that was the first time I knew who took their photograph as well, because she posted underneath it. So Web3 and crypto, I'm not sure whether I define Web3 and crypto differently. I think crypto is probably lends itself more to cryptocurrencies in my mind. So obviously Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, etc. And Web3 I think is maybe more of the promise of what, or I think there's a general understanding that we haven't discovered what Web3 is yet, but we're all working towards it. I think that's sort of more the metaverse side of things, the NFT side of things, the kind of blending of virtual and physical events, the kind of creator communities or audience communities of artists or fans of artists. So I think some of it is also branding, right? Because I think that going back to that 2017, obviously Bitcoin has been known as only used for drugs or a scam, and I think it wasn't a very trustworthy brand, especially if we wanted to onboard people outside of crypto and non-crypto natives. And I think if we want this mass adoption and we want the global adoption, then I think we need that. So I think probably Web3 is also a bit of a narrative to give to people that were around for the kind of dot-com bubble and then also the Web2 era, to be like, this is not a scary thing. This is just a natural evolution of what we've already had. So I think you can kind of use crypto and Web3 synonymously to a greater or lesser extent, but I think Web3 is more future looking and crypto is probably present and past, I would say.
Yeah, that's a great way to, I guess, explain it. Like, because I think that like crypto, when I hear crypto, I think more of the financial side of things, and then when I hear Web3, it's like, oh, these exciting possibilities for creators and creative value, and those sort of words come to my mind. So I think you explained it pretty well. Thank you.
What I think is really interesting with we've already kind of seen it, right, with a lot more celebrities and people in positions of power, whatever that happens to be, are more willing to like lash themselves to the mast of NFTs than they were. Like you don't have Jimmy Fallon coming out and saying that he's a Dogecoin buyer or a Ethereum buyer, but he's happy to show a Bored Ape. And the same with Justin Bieber or whatever else. That the NFTs seem to be, even though they have some negative FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt around them, then they still seem to be more palatable to mainstream and something that people are willing to like say, this is something that I really like, rather than people saying, I believe in Bitcoin, I believe in Ethereum or whatever else.
Yeah, I think it's less for artists and influencers, it's probably less political to go the NFT way, to drop an NFT. It's like the idea, I don't know, when Justin Bieber sold his socks on eBay and got like a lot of money, now he's thinking, oh, I can do the same thing but with NFTs, with like music, with videos, whatever kind of I want. There's also like, there's a bit of like a bad side to it when everyone is kind of like hopping onto that, and like big influencers and things you could discuss about that. But for me, right now, I want to know, you are NFT kind of heavy, like from what I saw on your Twitter, and I want to ask you, like, how do you really get involved into that NFT community, and how do you really start? For example, if I want to release my first NFT, or I want to get heavy into knowing, okay, what project I want to buy into, or I want to start collecting, like, how do I involve myself within that NFT space, kind of?
Firstly, in terms of like developing your own project, I'll do a quick shout out to Build Space, who created like a week-long NFT from zero coding experience to like deploying your first contract on the testnet and then deploying your first NFT on Ethereum mainnet, which I think is really cool. And as somebody like as covered before, I'm an actor and artist and have zero coding experience, so it was really empowering for me to be like, oh, this is how this works. Great. It's not some sort of thing that only people with years of experience can access. So that's really cool. And in terms of like what finding NFT projects, I think it's an annoying answer, but I think a lot of it is vibe, and whether you vibe with the people, whether you jump onto Discord and you're like, there's a lot of people like me that are sharing really the kind of ideas that I like, or one that released quite recently, which I own a couple of, disclosure, is Zipkey Supernormal. And it's a Korean artist, and I went onto their website, and it was a really wonderful website. And then they kind of created this like manifesto, which is like the longest like plan of any project that I've read, and it just really spoke to me. I just really understood and resonated with the aims of the project, and that was what made me go, I need to buy some of these. I need to have some exposure to some of these. Sometimes it can be the art. Sometimes you can the art can just really stand out to you, and that's a valid response. I think it's also like figuring out what you want as well. And I think it's about like whether you want to join a community and be part of that community for long term, whether you want to join that community for 1 week and make a bit of profit, or whether you want to help build the community or be a community manager or give people ideas or all that kind of stuff. So listening to podcasts, I think that's a useful way of doing it. I think Twitter is like there's I don't know if you follow in the story, the like narrative of crypto Twitter becoming more PvP, player versus player, over the last sort of few months as the market started going down and there was more high profile not even necessarily scams, but kind of dodgy things going on. I think it's really important to kind of find a group or individuals that you trust and you value the opinion of, and that you think that these people, their opinions aren't being bought. Coming back to the VC group that I'm part of, OX Ventures, I'm really grateful that I'm part of that and that I joined them last summer, because there's about 20 of us that are really into NFTs, and which is lucky because we're at a point now that even if you spent 24/7, you would never be able to find every project, which is terrible for FOMO. But I think the great thing about having a group of people that are also interested and you trust the opinion of is you can go on and somebody can go, this is launching in a couple of days, have a look. And it kind of helps you to not have to do all the work. And it kind of also turns down the FOMO, because if you've missed one, the likelihood is you'll be able to jump into the next one. But coming back to the thing I was saying earlier about only investing in what you really believe in, I think as long as you're not looking at a short-term flip, and of course, because there's so much liquidity short-term in NFT projects, I think people often do that. But if you're looking kind of for like your core holdings or the things that you really enjoy or vibe with, one of the biggest investments that I did at the time, which was a really large part of my portfolio at the time, was World of Women, because I when it came out either in June or July last year, I read the sort of read the website and what Jan was trying to do in terms of like bringing a lot of the money from 10K PFP projects and putting that then into one artists, lesser known artists, doing airdrops of artists to people that own the holders. So constantly giving money and giving exposure to new artists as an actor and performer, that really spoke to me. And I was like, makes so much sense to me. I'm kind of happy. I mean, if it's very easy to say that I'd be happy holding it to zero, but I'd be significantly more happy holding that to zero than I would be a project that I thought I could make a 2x on, didn't believe in the project at all, and then it all dries up within a week and I go, why did I waste my money on this rubbish? Finding something that you believe in. And I think that's also really useful, because it's come back to the 2017 thing where I sold my Bitcoin after 6 months because I didn't have conviction. And like, it's very easy to say that like, if you bought Bitcoin back in 2011, then, you know, you'd be a billionaire now. But the likelihood is that you'd have held for that long is slim to none. So if you're only getting into a project because you think you can make money from it rather than having any beliefs, you're going to sell it too early or sell it for a loss or whatever else. I'm sure that's happened a lot with people, even the big successes like the Bored Ape Yacht Club. People would have bought what was a Pico top and then was like, oh, this is going to zero, so sold it and wished they would have held it for longer. So I think it's about your own personal journey, and that's quite an annoying answer, but I think that's the only way you can get fulfillment and happiness and satisfaction from the space if you're chasing more than money. I think
that makes a lot of sense, thinking about like you have to have conviction in the project and in the community to hold it long term, because otherwise you will always think, okay, I'm going to flip this one or I'm going to sell it. It just seems sometimes a bit scary when you think about, oh, I'm going to drop 2K on this NFT and it's going, like, you know, you buy it and then you just have this file. Or I think what you said about joining like if it's an NFT group or if it's a Discord, you know, finding your people. Like we in the team, I have my co-host, she always sends me the interesting projects and join this Discord or join this, and I'm like, oh, it's like sometimes I have FOMO, but I think you have to overcome that and just have conviction within the people and the projects that you choose, and then you can have diversity. You can have some that you're really passionate about because of the project, and some that you might want to, you know, just really see go up, or have some diversity within your NFTs, I guess. So yeah.
I think one of the other things as well is to, and I think this is something that we don't really have within the NFT space at the moment, or it's not the mainstream because it's such a young space, is looking for longevity and looking for something that could be there at 5-10 years time. And whether that's looking at an artist's previous work, that they've been a non-NFT artist for 10 years, 20 years. And so the likelihood is they're going to still be creating work in 10 years or 20 years, rather than, and a lot of anon teams can be really wonderful, but if the synonymous identity that they've got is only been existing for like 1 or 2 months, there's a sort of, again, yeah, dropping $2,000, and if that's a lot of money for you, dropping $2,000 on a project with an anon team that you can't find any history of past a month, that could be a lot more scary than, for example, buying, again, come back to World of Women, because yeah, I'm as an established artist with a really wonderful work, likely to continue that work in the future. Same with the artist Trevor Jones, who is a Scottish fine artist who did the Bitcoin Angel, which was one of the big sort of open edition last year's. Again, full disclosure, I own a Bitcoin Angel, but also one of the reasons I've been really happy to hold a Bitcoin Angel, even though the price hasn't appreciated that much since I bought it, is there's a event happening in July of this year for holders to go up to a castle in Scotland and have a nice time. So the value doesn't necessarily always have to come from the price increase as well. They can be events. They sent some sticker packs through the door, which is just quite a nice thing. Same thing with the Forgotten Runes Wizard Cult. They did like a merch box, which came with hoodie, and I think they did like 400 of them, and candles and socks, and also they didn't say this at the time, but they included a QR code for another NFT. So you actually got an NFT by spending $300 with this company, and then they send you this merch box, and that NFT is now worth like 3 ETH or something. So there's lots of ways that these teams can reward their followers, their holders, their supporters. So I think looking for teams that are going to support their followers and holders long term is probably the best thing to do, and looking for a history of that or an indication of that.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm curious to know, like, what would you say is one of your favorite NFT projects, and why?
I'm really scared of saying this.
Okay.
No, the reason that I'm scared of saying this is on the last podcast I did, I think it was in like early December, and I said that one of the new projects that I really liked the look of was NFTs, the sort of pixel art like people on the laptop that are now at like 2 ETH, and at the time they were 0.1 ETH, and I shielded them quite heavily because I was like, it's a great project, and then didn't buy any myself. So now I've got a lot of FOMO of shilling something that I really like and then not actually buying it. But I really love World of Women. I think I keep coming back to them, but they are just such a, like, I also find it interesting because I'm in so many Discords. I've really tried to like streamline them recently, and the Discords that I really like the vibe of are, I think the projects are more comfortable to hold for long term. Zipki Supernormal, I think they did really well on their launch. They went up to about 5 ETH, and now I think they're below 1 ETH at the moment. The Flower Girls, I don't know if you've seen that project. There was kind of a celebrity coordinated strike of like Brie Larson and Reese Witherspoon, who is I just have to give props to, because she bought into World of Women back in October, not through MoonPay, all through her own money, because she could see the value in that project and the value in NFTs generally, and has now bought more projects, bought more World of Women, and then bought Flower Girls and displayed that as their profile picture. And Flower Girls I really like because the artwork is just astounding. I think it's like one of the few NFT projects that I could be like, I could have that on the wall, and like friends and family who have nothing to do with crypto would come around and be like, oh, that's really good. Who drew that? Is that Victorian? And also my partner the other day, I don't know if you see this flower behind me, she was wandering around the house with that on her head as an ode to Flower Girls. So they're just quite fun. And they're under 1 ETH. The magic ecosystem, which is kind of Treasure, which is on Arbitrum, is really interesting. They started with small brains and small bodies, and there's a lot of other projects. It's all open source code, so anybody can build on top of it. And if the team disappears, they can still keep building. They had a huge unlock last month on the 24th, and everybody thought it was going to crash. So people selling it went from $1 to about $3.50 that day, because everybody actually was really bullish on it and bought more. So I think the Magic ecosystem is really, really cool. Yeah, I think some of the I think it's interesting. Some of these like second wave or even first wave of second wave of PFP projects. I think Cool Cats is doing really cool stuff. I don't own any Cool Cats, but I really enjoy like their sort of Pokemon style cool pets with the milk. I think they seem like a really cool team as well. Every time I hear them, I think they're doing really interesting stuff. So there's lots really. 10KTF is a really interesting project that I've been a holder of quite a while. They started off as a derivative project. So if you held a Bored Ape or a Cool Cat or a World of Women or a 10N, am I saying that right? Then you could mint an NFT shoe or NFT bag with the picture of your NFT on it. And then subsequently they've released like crafting, so they airdrop people like crafting crafting items, so then they could make hats and jumpers and stuff like that. And now they're airdropping all the people that owned the that have held their NFTs for a while, Neo Tokyo Dollars NTD. So now it's not only crafting and a derivative project, it's also got a fungible side of it as well. I think that's really interesting. I have no idea where the project's going to go, but again, the team is shipping everything that they promise and like surprising everybody, and it's exciting. I think that's the thing as well, like going back to the fact that I view crypto as quite a positive space. Like being excited is really good, and I think if you like, your heart starts racing a little bit and you're like, this is really cool. I remember the second time I talked about this a lot on the last podcast I was on, but Opaque's work I find really interesting. They are constantly doing new and innovative things, and I think that's one of the things that I like, because I think if you're I think it makes it less of a crowded trade as well, because if you're only distinguishing feature between you and somebody else is the fact that you're making a 10,000 PFP project with sheep and rather than apes, then that's not probably going to make you survive long term. Doodles is a project I don't know very much about in terms of like being a part of the community, and obviously they're now like a 15 ETH floor or something, but I think it was really interesting. I listened to a podcast with them the other day, or one of the team the other day, and talking about how they came from CryptoKitties back in the day. And again, it's that kind of like heritage of an experience within crypto, because I think and they also spent like 9 months working on the project rather than churning out one project every month or something. I think that's the other thing as well, to going back to the PvP element, is I think there are some dev teams that just go and develop one project and then make whatever the mint fee is, and then go to another project, and then go to another project. So I think it's finding again, it's like anything, finding the teams that you really believe in and that have showcased something new or different, or are willing to, and the way they communicate as well. I think that's the thing. Like, I think it's really interesting when a project has their first FUD and how they respond to that, because if they respond to that like, you don't know what we're doing, we're amazing, you just don't get it, then not great. But I mean, I remember when Pudgy Penguins came out, there was a lot of FUD around them, and then they just started tweeting huddle, like they just memed their way out of it. And I think the team maybe hasn't showcased themselves brilliantly, and I think that was the main FUD at the time. But the community is still one of the strongest communities in the NFT space, and I think that is something that's really important. I don't think you can have a successful project without a strong community. I think that's a hill I'm willing to die on, and I think that's the case more so in NFT projects than it is in cryptocurrencies, because if you have to constantly kind of have hype, because they require so much. Because if you wanted to buy like sushi, you can buy like 2 sushi and that's fine. But if you want to buy a Bored Ape, you have to you have to buy like 150 or whatever it is Eastworth at the moment. So these projects require so much hype around them and constant innovation, and if the team isn't building that and the community isn't funding it by continuing to trade, then it all dries up and there's no more anything.
I think that was really good overview and advice. And like you just said, it's so difficult at the moment. For example, I see all these great fashion projects, like designs, like amazing designs, but then again they lack kind of the community or the marketing. And then you have crypto Twitter where people are just like, huddle, like buy this like pixel pic for 20k, and it's like they really striving, they're really striving and trying to figure it out. I think you really broke it down well on like what to think about, and that if you want to drop a project, you have to have a community, you have to build meaning within that project. I guess I saw some really disturbing video the other day where they talked about how people are just ripping off within the NFT community. For example, like they build this Discord, they build a community, and then they just close it and do it again. And I was like, whoa, this is so weird. But I hope that the real art and the real designers and the real art gets more and more into that space, because then it's not just like the stick figures and the pixel art, but also like the brilliantness of other diverse artists. Yeah.
Over the last few months, you've seen a lot of like NFT photography becoming really a lot more popular, and people like Kath Simard and Drifter Shoots kind of being a lot of the spearheading of that. I'm sure I'm missing some phenomenal art of NFT photography artists, but I think that's really cool to see as well, that you can that these things are evolving and changing very quickly. Yeah, and also like the stories about, I mean, this is the same thing you get in anything though, right? Like Amazon reviews are full with fake, with people that have been paid to make fake reviews or whatever else, and the stories of people getting paid to go into Discord and say how much they love the project and all that kind of stuff, which is shady and not great, but also it exists within. It's not a Web3 thing; it's a Web2 thing that we've kind of borrowed all the skills from. So coming back to you were saying about the fashion, and that's one of the reasons I've enjoyed Zip Keys, zips, because they started off with like a fashion catwalk. So like they'd reveal a new NFT every 20 seconds from 1 to 10,000. So they had like a really cool DJ in, and then for like part 2 of the project, they're going to airdrop people a pack of like different clothes and accessories and whatever else, so they can dress their Zip Key however they want. So again, it brings like a uniqueness, and it allows you as an audience or as a fan to create what you want to see. And I think that's really interesting, exciting as well. Again, with the World of Women, one of the really cool things about that project at the start, or still now, is the fact that they had like art collector earrings. And if you owned one of the World of Women art collectors, you could then suggest, or you could then tell the DAO what art to collect under an ETH or under a quarter of an ETH that month. So every month you got to pick a new piece of artwork to put in the museum. So not only were you a holder of the NFT, but you were also helping lead in what way the project was going to go, what kind of art you were going to collect. I think that like when you not only have the part of the community because you own the NFT, but also because you get to like actually take part in decisions or ownership or everything else. I think that's really cool too.
Yeah, that you can actually build with the community, and you can maybe make your own NFTs. Like I joined Discord, I think from like one of my favorite brands, Ambush. And now it feels like, oh, I can actually talk to the people who are working on these projects, and the barriers are like kind of low, because I can become like have a role within their community. And even though there's a lot of like, everyone is kind of on there and everyone is trying to be engaged so they can get a role, but it's cool that you can talk to some of the creators, some of your favorite artists, and maybe make a project with them. I think that's never been there before, because usually you would have to, how do you get that connection? You cannot go to the gallery and you meet your favorite artist there and say, hey, let's make a project. That's kind of impossible almost. Web3 is really giving us the chance to just try, you know. I think that's something I like. Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for sharing that, Joy. I think you really nailed it. And I think in the end, you know, it's all about the intention and our values, you know, and like, you know, Opaque, like you said, you know, you go for things that you believe in, you know, that you're passionate about, and it kind of drives you. And so the you're not driven just by the, you know, of course I don't blame those who want to gain some, I don't know, monetize or make some money. I mean, this is some sort of like, it's given a lot of artists a chance to also gain some value, and of course it's and eventually it's going to be filtered, right? But for now everybody is trying because they can earn some money, and I don't blame them. But I think that we have that responsibility to make sure that it's done right, you know, that Web3 has this power to make sure, or the communities have this power to make sure that things are done right. And people like you know, you're part of this podcast, and you're, you know, sharing so much knowledge and your experiences and everything. And I think somebody else listening to this will be inspired, you know, to realize that perhaps maybe let me choose projects that have courses or stuff that I'm passionate about, and let me not make it just be about the money, you know. And so that's really great. And of course, like with Twitter and all these platforms, there's always like something new. There's always something new in the Web3 space, and things keep changing, and which is great. But then sometimes it can be really stressful. It can be confusing, and you're feeling like you're missing out on something. And I know that you're big on mental health. So like, how do you like incorporate that in your work? And what are, like, if you have any words to share with, you know, the Web3 community, what would you say, like how to navigate this?
It's a really hard one to navigate.
Right.
We, as part of the DAO, as part of the VC group, OX Ventures, we have set up like a process group. So every week for an hour and a half, we come on and we just share whatever we need to talk about, whether that's FOMO, or we've done a really bad trade, or feeling stressed out about work-life, crypto life balance, work crypto life balance, or the like balancing anything. And I think that's been really useful, again, to because I think one of the things that we've been really learning and discussing, I think this is why a forum like this is really good as well, is because often you are the most interested, if you're interested in Web3 and really deep into Web3, you are often the most interested and deep into Web3 person that you know, and partners, friends, family, with all the goodwill that they can, will be like, oh, that sounds really terrible, or that sounds really great, but they also won't get it, or be able to build on it, or be like, oh yeah, that happened to me. And sometimes just hearing, I think it can be quite an isolating place to be. The space that we're in, it can be a really wonderful space in terms of building community, but it can also be quite isolating, of like, I am the only one that made the stupid mistake. I am the only one that missed out on this. I am the only one that is putting all of my money into crypto and not putting any into my bank account. And is that a clever thing to do, or what's going on? I'm the only one that maybe shouldn't be up to 5 o'clock in the morning trying to mint something new and should be probably getting 8 hours sleep. I am the only one that should be spending more time with my friends or my partner rather than trying to graft a whitelist. So I think having this group and having this space once a week where we can just go, we're really stressed out, and other people go, yeah, that's exactly what I'm feeling. I think that is just as a really basic thing. I think that's within any industry. Previous to this, I've run a mental health retreat for actors and artists. We've run, me and a theatre company that I run, have run workshops for artists, teachers, students. And fundamentally, that's basically what it comes down to, is just feeling seen and feeling like you're not alone. I think it's really helped at OX Ventures, and I've been really grateful that the group there have been really keen to give it a go and try it on, and people keep turning up every week and seem to find it quite useful. And also selfishly, I think I set it up because that's what I needed. I think with a lot of these things, right, like I was feeling really burnt out and really stressed out, and like I was staying up to 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was like feeling a bit, so I was like, well, if I run one of these things, then I can selfishly get some support from other people's stories as well. And it's been really great that people keep turning up every week. We're running one tonight, actually. So that's quite specific about what we've been doing, but I think it's again, yeah, I think it's and it comes back to the idea of community, right? Is finding people within the space that you can trust, that you can say, I've just missed out on, like the fact that I missed out on MFs, right? The fact that I was shilling it in December, saying it's a really good project, then didn't buy any, and it's times 20. And if it wasn't for a group like OS Ventures or friends on Twitter that I'm like, I've done this, and they're like, yeah, don't worry, that happens to all of us, or you'll get the next one, or whatever else, it allows you to feel less alone. I think that and allows you to feel seen. And also the idea that, like, kind of also what I was talking a little bit about earlier, the kind of like having a bit of a long-term lens and thinking about longevity, is that we are so focused in this space to be like, I need to make a times 5 this week, or a times 10 this week, or I need to make the money to retire this year. Whereas, like, we're so early in this space. I know it's a massive meme, but within the NFT space especially, like, we have no idea what it's going to look like in 10 years. And I think that's what we mean by it's so early. So I think just like taking it slow, if you can, enjoying the ride. Like some people in the group have suggested things like deleting Twitter and Discord off your phone, so only having it in one place, that be your laptop. I don't do that. Full disclosure, I have deleted Twitter when it gets a bit too much, but I have found that a useful thing to kind of like reset and take a little bit of space. I've started journaling. Like if I'm doing a lot of crypto stuff in a day, I've started keeping a diary to try and like keep on top of things so things don't get on top of me. So I think the more space you take from it, the less the FOMO gets. And I think just focusing on things like your sleep and focus, these sound really easy. And there are also things that are really much easier said than done, but they are the things that help, of like speaking to people about your problems, getting enough sleep, doing some exercise, getting outside, and doing things that you enjoy, whether that's in crypto or not in crypto. And also maybe going to some of the like the meetup events as well. Like I've had a really wonderful time both in ECC last year and also ETH Lisbon last year, of just meeting like-minded people and having a really wonderful time and getting really excited. So I think, again, the more connections you can form, the more honest you can be with yourself and other people, and the more space you can take away from it when you need it. And also, I think the idea that like, just because you're taking space, it probably means you'll be able to make better decisions in the long run. Whereas like there's the thing of like making it all back in one trade, right? If you've lost a bit of money or you miss something and then you're like, oh, I've got to make it back, you're far more likely to make bad decisions than sitting on your hands going, how can I, and waiting for the right decisions, or waiting for the right opportunities to present themselves, or you need to find them rather than actively grafting or searching for them, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, totally. I think you've definitely touched on great points. And like you said, it's easier said than done, but I think it's important. And even within our team, like Joy and myself and other team members, we tend to, to have just like chats outside work stuff, we just like discuss everything, and then we kind of help each other process stuff, because, working in Web3 is amazing, but it's such an international, space where sometimes, you deal with time zones, and there's also like just a lot of doing, and it can be fun, and you want to like put a lot on your plate, because it's something you love and is exciting, and you also don't want to miss out, and so you keep going and doing and sometimes you kind of like just you get burnt out, so I think that it's good that we find these moments where we take a break. And one friend of ours, she always feels guilty when she takes a break, she feels like she has to keep going and she has to keep doing, but I think you're right. Like stepping away sometimes can help you come back and make a better decision. But if you keep going, then you will probably make bad decisions and things will get worse and all that. So that was really great points. Thank you for going through that with us.
Yeah, and I also want to say on the mental health topic that, you might think you are alone going through it, but actually like everyone is kind of maybe experiencing similar things, even though you don't think about it. Like, it's not healthy to be 12 hours on your computer, just staring at your screen, like looking at things or coding. And it's like you said, it's important that we take breaks, that we take care of our body, and also meet up with people in real life. Even though I'm guilty of that sometimes as well, but yeah, I think finding the balance between that can make it more healthy, and then you have a clearer mind to focus on what really like excites you within the space.
Exactly.
I think that's really important. So we heard a lot about, you know, the metaverse in the last couple of weeks, and I personally am interested within the concept of like, okay, you can virtually meet and you can virtually do things. You know, I've been in like a metaverse gallery, and I'm wondering, how do you think is that going to impact creatives and their work positively or negatively? What do you think about this space of the metaverse, that concept, and what do you think, where is it going to go?
I don't necessarily know how experienced I am with or how much I think about the metaverse itself. I think for me, the metaverse of Twitter, Discord, Ethereum, the DeFi that exists on there, the NFTs that exist on there, Tezos, etc. That seems to be, for me, metaverse-ish by itself. And whether and I don't really know what the next step is going to be with that. I think for me, a metaverse will probably look like or a metaverse that I would like to see would be a blurred lines between the two, where you own an NFT and you can go to an event or you can go to a concert or whatever else. So you've both got the digital world side of things, but you've also how that interacts with our physical reality. I think coming back to what we were just talking about as well, of like meeting up with friends in the real world, I think it's like one thing that I'm trying to do more of is trying to really hold in my mind why I want to quote make it and not. And those things are usually to do with friends, family, passions, whatever else. They're not for the sake of just having more money. Do you see what I mean? So I think kind of holding that in mind. And I think, yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult one with the metaverse, because I don't know how much. I think VR is great. I think it can really serve a purpose, but I also think there's a lot of value to going outside and having fun and like exploring like a tangible physical thing. And I don't necessarily think we've done enough of that over the last few years as well. So so I don't know if I'm the best person to answer questions about where the metaverse is going to go. I'm interested to hear your thoughts though.
I was just thinking about the phrase that you said of making it, you know, and I feel like when you are coming from like an artist background or you are a creator, you always have like that concept in your mind of making it. Or even if you come from like a, let's say, a normal family or a normal background, you know, even me, like I feel like everyone has that like kind of feeling inside of, oh, I want to make it, I want to, you know, make money, I want to be successful, so I can also like kind of give that to my community or the people around me. And I just think it's really interesting that you mentioned that, because it just came up in my mind that that's why I think DAOs and things like that we do with like New Life, where we build communities and everything. For me, the concept of like making it and finding purpose within Web3 was kind of like my motivation, you know, why I felt like, okay, a DAO could be a very cool concept of like how we can distribute ownership to different people, how we can split these, let's say me and Salim make an NFT, we can go 50-50 on it and somebody else can invest in it. Or, you know, these concepts of like, okay, we can build a community and long-term maybe everyone can get their share of it. You know, we are not there yet, but I think that is kind of like the American dream of the Web3 space, kind of, you know, if you want to say it like that. And I think, yeah, that's something really interesting that just came into my mind when you mentioned that. Yeah. And to the metaverse, to be honest, I'm very in between, because I heard so many opinions on it. Yes, there are so many possibilities and everything, but I don't really like the word metaverse per se. I think it's more like a online space or whatever you want to call it, that's we build or that we can create. And I think there are opportunities, like for example, virtual galleries, virtual online stores. But there's also the fear of like, okay, I'm getting lost or stuck on this game like universe that is on the internet, kind of. So yeah, I mean, we will see, but it's definitely something that has been on my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I will add quickly that, like you said, you know, just wanting to make it versus like asking yourself like why you want to make it. I think that's so deep, and I think that's something a lot of us should start thinking about, because sometimes we're just doing, and we're just doing because somebody else is doing, and especially with this, the time that we live in, where there's like just so much information around, and a lot of it visually, of course, some of it is text-based, but there's just so much going on, and we aspire to do a lot of things, but sometimes I feel like we're not even sure, why we're doing them. So I think it's really important, as you said, like, to really ask ourselves why we're doing things, and answer them, because once we know the why, how becomes much, much easier, right? And you become more convicted, you become more confident, and you're able to sort of like really focus on what you're doing. And on the topic of the metaverse, I think just as Joy, that word, yeah, it's a bit of like, maybe because it's become such a hype now, and it kind of, I don't want to say too much, but yeah, it's a bit of, it's a very strange word for me. And I think my concerns with the metaverse, again, is that, during the COVID time, and also sort of that experience has kind of like pushed people into being indoors. It's like you don't even have a choice. Like these days you don't really have a choice. Like you want to go places but you can't, because there are all these restrictions, and you need this and you need that. So people are, okay, forget it, I'll just stay indoors. And so if you're presented with this other world that is so exciting, then what's going to happen? And I think that's sort of like the concern that I have personally. I mean, it's bringing a lot of possibilities and opportunities for creators, but I just have this like the moral, ethical side of things, and I think that we'll see how it goes.
I think it was on the Untitled Crypto podcast, I think it was episode 1, Meltem, I don't know how to say her second name, Demiras, but she was basically saying that this is like we are living in a, like, crypto is a game, like, and it's a game with huge financial incentives if you play the game right, and that kind of like becomes so all-encompassing that other games or other things can kind of fall by the wayside. I think once you kind of acknowledge that it is a game and that you are playing, potentially it becomes easier. And also 6529 Punk, who is very NFT orientated, was talking a long time ago about level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, and kind of the and level 1 is you potentially don't have housing, you don't have enough money to eat. And then level 2 is like you're just about making ends meet, you can just about making your rent, but you are worried about where the money's coming from. Level 3 is like you're comfortable, you don't have to worry about where the next paycheck's coming from. Level 4 is you have more money than you know what to do with. I'm paraphrasing here, but you have more money than you know what to do with. You've made it. But then level 5 is you're living in accordance with what you actually wanted to do, or what you actually want to do. So if that's going fishing every day, and coming home and cooking your fish and your dinner and having a joint outside and drinking a glass of wine every night, that's making it for you. And potentially you could even be doing that with a level 3 salary. You don't even need to get to level 4. And I think that's the thing, a lot of people get to the point where they have all this money, especially within crypto, and then they're like, they start living the life that they think they should live rather than the life that they would have wanted to live if you'd have asked them before they made the money. And I think it's a lucrative trap for all of us to fall into. And I think keep bringing it back to like, what do I actually want and what do I need?
Right. I quickly want to add on that, because it's the Maslow pyramid that you're talking about. That's like the hierarchy of needs. And if you come, for example, from a very background where you don't have anything, you have to suffer for food, you have to suffer for all these things, and you are in need, then your mind can't even go beyond that. You're thinking about, okay, how am I going to eat? How am I going to where am I going to sleep? And then, like you said, gradually you graduate and you think about more, okay, how can I fulfill this desire and this desire? But as you just said, once you reach a certain topic, you might see, okay, that doesn't really fulfill me or doesn't really like equal happiness. And then you're like, okay, now what? But it's like you said, crypto is a game with huge incentives, with huge also possibilities for people. You almost feel guilty when you don't, when you have all these chances and you don't go for it, kind of, that you're like not everyone has the same opportunity, but we talked with different artists from Africa, for example, and them joining Web3 and seeing them with like a broken laptop learning like these softwares, and I'm like, this is so impressive and inspiring to me to even be in this space and to even make this like a nice community or make this like a nice space where things are possible for people. Very interesting philosophical thought with this with the thing that you mentioned. I
think for me personally, I've been finding it more easy to take space away from crypto and Web3, and I think ironically or conversely, it's happened because I've started taking Web3 and myself within Web3 more seriously. That the more I viewed myself as kind of a crypto native, the more I'm like, well, this is a job and I need time off from a job rather than it being my life. And the other thing is I took money out of crypto for the first time recently, apart from obviously when I took the money in 2017, but or 2018. But I took some money out of crypto, and then again that made it more real. That made it more like a job and something that I do that gives me security rather than something I'm grafting for the idea of something years down the line. And I think that's the other. I think it's weird. I think it's we've got a weird thing where people are very short-term orientated in this space, but their goals are very long-term. So then they suffer in the short term for some magical time that might never come, right? So they're sitting on all this money in crypto, but they're like, I don't want to cash any out because it's more valuable there. But also like enjoying your life in the present moment is also valuable. Going to the cinema, going out with your friends to on a night out, all of these things that become more possible when you've got more money, or take more money out of crypto, are also things that can give you joy. And again, if you want to look at it from a financial perspective, will help you make better decisions. Because the more comfortable, the less worried you are on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the more comfortable you are and the better decisions you make. Whereas like I think, and it's interesting because we have the same, I don't necessarily want to call it a poverty mindset, but there's a lot of artists, especially within my field, that don't feel like they are true artists unless they are struggling for money. So there's even quotes that say, if I am not poor, I am not an actor. And this is actually what people say. I don't know, I vaguely know where some of these ideas come from, but I think they're really dangerous. And I think that some of them are also within the crypto space of like, if I'm not struggling and spending 12 hours a day on Discords and crypto Twitters looking at charts and whatever else, then I am being lazy and I will not make it. Whereas actually, potentially what could be a lot better is going, I'm going to treat this as an 8-hour day. I'm going to go spend some time with my friends. I'm going to go spend some time with my family, with my partner, with my dog. And potentially that might actually be a much better, not only for your mental health, but also for your financial health, physical health, and security long term. Because if we are, and also if we don't take profits in this really extended bull market that we've got, then if we do get an extended bear market, who knows, that's not my field, but if we do get an extended bear market, then we'd have wished we'd have taken some profits when the made hay while the sun shine kind of thing. So I think there's huge value in taking yourself more seriously in this space if this is something that you want to do full time, and also paying yourself for taking yourself seriously. And this comes back to both being an actor, and people will do jobs just for exposure, or people want people to do jobs just for exposure. And again, it's treating yourself seriously so then other people treat you seriously as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went a bit of a manifesto.
No, that was wonderful. I think, I mean, I like that we're discussing a lot of topics around mental health in connection with Web3, and I think that's really important, because sometimes we're just like excited about the possibilities and all the games and all the stuff, but we're not really touching, because Web3 is amazing, but then it's got its pros and cons, and we have to be transparent about it. And so I think that's what we're doing today. We're sort of like, how do you say, shedding light to, the pros and cons, of this space, and I think that it's definitely important. And so we spoke a bit about like crypto and finance and stuff like that, and I want to know your thoughts on like what you see as a benefit of DeFi in general.
I think a benefit of decentralized finance, and I said it in full because I think some things that purport to be DeFi aren't DeFi, is that you can access financial systems regardless of where you come from, your background, what country you're based in, regardless of what your government want for you. I'm not an expert on what's happening in Canada in any way, shape or form, but I think that was a really interesting thing that happened yesterday, where they said that they could freeze people's bank accounts if they were taking part in the blockade. And then, I mean, that is the case for decentralized finance, and that's the case for Bitcoin. And I think in the next few years, I think that the decentralized part of cryptocurrencies will become more and more important. I mean, whether we agree, and I largely do, with the philosophy behind how governments have dealt with COVID, rather than the actual rather than how they've actually implemented those policies, because I think a lot of them have been a load of rubbish, especially in my country. But I think the philosophy behind them has been good. It has also kind of been stress testing authoritarianism of like, do not leave your homes, do not come within 2 meters of this. And then also in my country, that rule has only been for everybody apart from the ruling party. So they can do whatever they want. They can have parties. They can go have affairs. They can go to local castles and make business deals and all this kind of stuff, and not in their local area. So I think the decentralized finance gives it a more level playing field, that like the old adage of like code is law, right? That anybody can access these financial systems, rather than just the people that, I mean, in the States as well, the fact that like there's the whole like meme of the fact that if you put your money in a bank account, you get 0.01% a year on your stable coins and on your fiat. But in DeFi, you can get 5, 10, 15, 20% on stable coins per year. That's scary, threatening, or not. And it seems like the American government don't want people to have access to that under the guise of like protection from fraud. Whereas it seems like it's leveling the playing field for retail people who don't have access to investing licenses. I'm not really sure what they are in the States, but investing licenses or whatever else. So it seems like it levels the playing field for everybody, and I think that's important.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. You know, it's like when we are in school, we never really got taught so much about taxes, finances, and it's kind of seemed like, you know, this cycle or like this system that you didn't really understood, or you didn't really want to enter. And like you said, that also goes back to the artist poor mindset of like, I will probably never get there, or I will probably never make that money, or, you know, you don't really concern with it. You're just like, oh, whatever, like, you know, live your life and do your job. But now it's like, wait a minute, like actually DeFi can give access to people all around the world. I think we're not there yet, you know, because there's still in certain countries like the limitations of they cannot open certain things, or they cannot have accounts in certain countries, but it is a more equal chance of entry for everyone. And yeah, I think I never was excited about finance, like never really, but now I'm like, this is actually cool. Like this is actually something that is valuable, that can bring value to so many people. And yeah,
I think like a lot of things as well, it's hidden behind a veneer of complexity, and has been that we're not allowed to understand this. These are the things that people in positions of power can only understand. Whereas like I've learned more about finance in the last 12 months just going on trading shitcoins than I have done in the last the rest of my life, kind of thing. And like and I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I think it really empowers us, you know, like Joyce said, you know, we don't really get we go to school, we learn a lot of stuff, but we don't really get deep into financial stuff. And then you graduate and it hits you, and if you have loans to pay and all these things about credits and whatnot. And so, yeah, totally, I think DeFi is like there's a form of financial empowerment, and you get to take your own sort of ownership. You get to be in charge of what you do. I mean, as long as you have access to the internet, of course, then you have this opportunity. But of course, we're not completely yet there. Like Joyce said, there are a lot of countries that could benefit from this as well, but they lack the access, and also with Web3, there's still that hurdle with like the onboarding process, which can be a bit overwhelming. So we're still figuring how to make all of these sort of more user-friendly for the community, and I guess in time we will get there. But yeah, this has been really awesome. Like you've really like touched on a lot, and this is like a super educative episode, and I think our audience are gonna learn a lot, especially the beginners, and before we wrap up, I was thinking like this concept of I'm an artist and I'm poor, don't you think it comes from movies? I mean, because whenever we watch movies, there's an artist that, like with a story, this person was like struggling, or maybe let's say Hollywood actors, a lot of them hustled, struggled, and then made it. So there's this mind of, as an artist, you have to hustle and struggle, before you make it. But I guess it doesn't always have to be that way. It's what we tell ourselves, yeah. I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, no, I think that definitely is part of it. I think it's existed from prior to that as well. And I think that Hollywood is tapping into a narrative that already exists and then making that more proliferating that narrative more, which I think is quite scary. But also I think there's within the arts, there's a really dangerous lie that the more suffering you have, the better artist you are. There's a really interesting study that was done a few years ago. I think a lot of it was on, including on Van Gogh, and they looked at his work when he was in famous bad periods of his life and famous good periods of his life, and they looked at how much the work sold for when he did it when he was in a depressed state, and how much when he was in a happy state. And the work that he created when he was happy was worth more than the work that he created when he was sad. So it's not only a lie, it's not only a dangerous idea, it's also like a dangerous lie, that we actually as artists create work better when we are happy and we are centered and we are fulfilled. And I think that is part of and I think some art can come from suffering, but you don't need to be suffering to create good art, if you see what I mean.
I like
just
that.
coming back to
Right.
Sorry.
You don't need to be suffering to create like great art, but then I like that you also pointed out that some art can come out of like, because art is sometimes a form of sort of pretty much expressing yourself. And so if you're going through some trauma or some form of depression, you can put that into your work, and it's therapeutic, and also obviously you can monetize from it as well. So yeah, but that shouldn't be a limit.
I think, yeah, like you said, we've been fed that image for so long. It's been passed down generations. And for me, that's why I also joined NewCoin, because I was like, they are actually like trying to fight for this, and they are actually trying to make systems that work better. And like, I'm tired of that narrative that we get put on, or, hearing from friends that they didn't get paid enough for their work, or, in any kind of industry. And I'm just like, creativity is going to be the most valuable thing, because if AI steps in and replaces everything, what is left? Creativity and building things. So yeah, I think that is really important.
And that sort of starts another whole conversation with if AI takes over. We will probably get there another time, because a lot of people will be making a face like, Joy, what are you saying? But obviously we need to dive into it more to explain what we kind of mean about, mean about that. But yeah.
Just to come back finally to you were saying about understanding about financial systems giving you power. Again, coming back to my background of acting, is actors are the most disempowered group within any film, TV, stage, whatever, because we're not taught anything at drama school about how to look after our finances, how to negotiate a contract, how we should value ourselves. That is then put on an agent. So they are the person that's supposed to do all of that for no other reason other than the fact that agents are really wonderful and can be really good and can be really supportive, but also actors can also deal with their own finances and everything else as well. So that's one part of disempowerment. And then, of course, you've got the producers, who are the people that control the money, who are, again, a stage above. And it's interesting as well, like watching TV or film that has an actor as one of the executive producers, and generally they're really good pieces of TV and film because you've got a creative in the upper echelons of power. And then also generally artists support artists. So the more artists, the more actors, the more creatives you have in positions of power, the more power should in theory get dispersed. But I think sometimes it struggles if people have felt like they had to work for it, then they feel like they have to punish the younger generation to be like, I struggled, I was bullied, I was abused, therefore you should be. And I think we have to kind of like step out of that cycle of disempowerment and abuse as well within all industries. And I think that's what makes NFTs a really obvious solution to a problem. Whether or not it ends up being the solution, who knows? But like it is offering a solution to something that is quite clearly has been a problem within all creative industries for a long time, of artists being disempowered and not even necessarily being the ones that profit from their own work the most.
Yeah, and then you pay so much for being in acting school or being, you know, even following that dream, and then you still don't get treated equal, like you still don't get paid for it, you know, or you still have to suffer so much. And I think it's just like you said, it's time to just leave that behind and get more creatives empowered. And NFTs is one way, as you mentioned. So I was wondering, Opaque, where can our listeners find you on social media before we wrap everything up? And yeah,
I'm mostly on Twitter or at Opaque. I think my DMs are open, so if anybody's got any questions or anything, please drop me a line. You can also find OX Ventures, which is the group that I'm part of, and there's a lot of NFT degens on there, at OX_Ventures. We've got a community Discord as well. I'm also on Discord. I can send a link to that. I don't think my DMs are open on there because of how many scams are just sent through Discord pretending that they're Cool Cats Mint or whatever. But yeah, no, Twitter's the main spot. So if anybody wants to reach out or anything, then I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much for being part of today's episode. I think it was, like Selimi said, it was super great. You know, we had a lot of diverse topics, I think. And yeah,
I think any artist that will watch this today, I mean, this episode, will feel empowered, you know, because we went through so much, and Web3 is definitely allowing and giving us the opportunity to be empowered. And it's just given the opportunity for everyone to be able to sort of like use their skills, you know, no matter how big or small, you have some sort of a role to play. And I really loved it about it, you know. I didn't go to school to be a moderator for a podcast, you know, I went to fashion, but, you know, here I am being given the opportunity to do this and, you know, and to grow in this role. So this is why, you know, we love Web3 and, like you said, NFTs and DeFi and all of these amazing tools that we have access to now. And yeah, we can't wait to see where it goes. So thank you again so much, Opaque. It was amazing to have you, and thank you all for being a part of today's forum. If you want to get more involved in our community, make sure to follow us on our social platforms. You can also join our private Telegram group. We'll put all the links in the description, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And if you guys have any questions, don't forget to put them in the comments. See you next time.
Thank you, Opaque. Thank you, Selimi.
Thank you.
It was my pleasure. See you soon.
Likewise, see you soon.